CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 25, A Safe and Sane Christmas. And now, your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Welcome back, friends, to Authentic Spiritual Journey. As always, we're going to have a great show today. My name is Cynthia Alice, and I am the host here in 818 Studios with my producer.
Hey, I'm Dave Croft. What is up, everybody? Glad to be with you today.
Dave, who's crazed over Christmas in the best possible way.
Oh, man, I've been listening to Christmas music since... I listen to Christmas music with any month that ends in burr. That's my dad joke.
Oh, that's a good one. Har, har, har. That's a real groaner. Well, I decided a safe and sane Christmas was better than an unsafe and insane Christmas.
I know. Man, just gigs and schedules and rehearsals and, man, it's crazy. And I know for pastors, you're planning how many services and everything?
Well, I mean, there are extra services, especially because we do Christmas Eve and we do something that most other churches don't do called Burning Bowl, which is on New Year's Eve. But all those are my favorite. All those are my favorite services of the year. So I always look forward to it.
Right.
And it's always a very busy time. And so I am the perfect person to be talking about a safe and sane Christmas because I've done unsafe and insane many times. And it always at the beginning, it doesn't look insane. But what happens is I forget myself, I forget my boundaries, and I forget to stay connected with Spirit. And I've learned to do that differently. And every year I have to make a new decision to do that and do that well. So I want to give some of the teachings to you all and some of the lessons I've learned. Really, the teachings. I mean, in fact, they're just life lessons because I did it wrong at first.
School of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, School of Hard Knocks. And we're always talking about the spiritual journey, and today's no exception. We're having fun just sharing conversation, Dave and myself, and we are... I don't know if this is a word, co-journers, but co-conspirators on the spiritual journey.
Co-journer, like a sojourn,
Yeah, we're both journeying and doing the best we can on the spiritual journey. And our hope and our prayer is that as you hear our stories and our conversations, that it'll both lift you up and also give you new ideas. And I'm sure you're creating ideas of your own as well. And we're happy to bring the show today.
Yeah, and help you to feel like you're not alone and you're not crazy,
Oh, yeah.
You're definitely not alone. We're all on this together, just different people at different spots on the same path.
Yes, and if we were in church right now, I would say, how many have had an unsafe and insane Christmas? Raise your hand.
I'd raise my hand.
And we would both raise our hands. So again, part of the spiritual journey is the incredible human experience that we get to have every day. And I have really learned some things, and several of the things I'm going to be sharing today have been really up for me in my journey in a real positive way. It's a deepening and expanding of things I've already known, but it certainly applies very, very well to the holiday season. And I say the holiday season not for any reason other than holiday is easier to say than Christmas, Christmas, Christmas. So nobody please take offense that I'm using the word holiday. We'll talk about that in the next show as well. It's like it's really okay to say Christmas or holiday.
That's right. Yep.
All is well. All is well. And I think one of the key things that happens, let me just share from a minister perspective what I see happening every year. I'll tell you what I do, and I'll tell you what I hear from my members and from the people I've counseled over the years. What so many people do is they get overbooked and overbusy, and they overbuy, and they forget their boundaries. They forget to stay grounded in themselves, and they forget to stay, connected to Spirit. And all of those things are red flags for going into insanity. And the pressures are high at the holidays, especially because we do want to buy things for people we love, and there are extra parties, there are extra events, there's extra expectations on our time. When we go out, people tend to be frenzied and in a hurry, and the traffic is crazed. So all of these things can lead us to a feeling of overwhelm, of being out of control, of even a feeling of unsafe, a feeling literally unsafe, because the energy is so I'm going to say,
frantic.
I was going to say something really educated like wacky do.
Well, it starts with the day after Thanksgiving, doesn't it?
Yes.
It starts with Black Friday, and I mean, how many news reports did we see of poor people getting trampled over a
Yeah.
$100 TV at Walmart or something? It kind of starts there, and I understand, capitalism, yay, but man, the whole season starts with a foot race to get in each other's way, and a foot race to frenetic energy.
Yes.
Doesn't it seem
Oh, it does. It does. And I was just, as you were telling that story, I was just thinking the other day when I was out walking my dog, and which I do nearly every day, 5 or 6 days a week. And I was coming up to this intersection, and it was clear that a car was trying to get over, to the left to turn, and it had like gotten in the wrong lane. And gosh, who hasn't that happened to a time or two? And the guy was trying to get over, and the other cars were so angrily moving forward and swerving around. And it's like, oh my gosh.
like highway justice.
It was
right?
like it would not take more than 15 seconds out of your whole day, to let that person in. And I think all of that we're seeing right now is really a reflection of how people feel helpless, people feel hopeless, and out of their anxiety, out of their depression, out of their fear, we're acting out because we don't know what to do with it. And so at the holidays, that tends to be magnified because there's so much going on, so many demands on our time. And the very people we're supposed to be connected to and loving, we're so busy running around to buy for that we forget to love them. We forget to spend time. And also realizing everyone around us is probably trying to do the same thing. And so we want to respond as much as possible in love and stay, as I mentioned, as centered in ourselves as possible.
Yeah, I'm guilty about the traffic thing, especially if you see someone being a real jerk, and it's like, hey, we're all merging here, buddy. You don't have to you don't have to try to zoom around us, and then they try to edge over, and man, my sense of justice really kicks in, and I turn into Captain America on the road, and I'm like, oh, you will not get over here. Attention, citizens! I, Dave, the guy in the orange element. I will take care of us all.
I'd love to see you in a Captain America with a shield and a leotard.
Nobody wants to see me in a leotard. But you know what I mean? It's like, my justice rages up. But
Yeah.
But then I think, if I let this guy over,
Yeah.
then that energy is gone.
Exactly.
It's gone. It's
Exactly.
it's purged. And yes, he's in front of me. I've lost maybe 8 seconds of my commute.
Yes.
And if anything, I can rest assured on my high moral horse that I was the better man.
Well, yes. And what you're speaking of, Dave, is the spiritual law of surrender.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Spiritual law of surrender. It's interesting because recently I did a live show where I was talking about my book, 7 Spiritual Laws of Release. And we were talking about that spiritual law, and I'll give this example because I had never had the experience before where I was live, and the show was actually in Spanish, so everything that I said was live translation, right after. And so when we were talking about the law of surrender, I said, "Well, I'm surrendering right now," because I'm used to speaking as much as I want for as fast as I want about spiritual principle, but I would have to say a sentence and stop.
Wait, yeah.
And wait. And so the show itself on surrender, well, that was one of the laws we were talking about, one of the 7 I write about in my book. And I said, so right now I'm in surrender. And then the woman who was translating was also a part of it because it was her show and she's a coach to several people. And she said, well, I'm having to surrender too because as a coach, I'm wanting to say something about what you're saying, but my job tonight is to translate. And so, Dave, in the traffic that you were talking about, the surrender pieces, I'm not going to resist what's happening. And the first thing I wanted to talk about, it really is staying grounded in you. To stay grounded in you. And one of the ways we stay grounded in us is really being clear about who we are, what we are to be about, and staying grounded in ourselves does have a surrender aspect because it means we're not resisting what's happening. So in the case of the traffic where somebody wants to, come over, into your lane or whatever, and it is often frustrating if somebody, when somebody doesn't want to let you over and, and all that stuff. But if you if you can, like you say, be the better person, it's not even about even being better. It's like, I'm just not going to surrender this person's need to be weird right now.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so what do I lose if they get over?
Yeah, what's the downside?
Yeah, what's the downside? Like somehow I've lost. I mean, it's like, what? Our ego is that small that we're worried about losing 8 seconds of a commute? I mean,
Off of a stranger you will never, ever see again in your life.
right. And my gosh, who wants to create karma with that person? Well, you will see them again. And friends, believe me, you will. So staying grounded in ourselves, meaning we want to be clear and, well, let me back up. Staying grounded in yourself means I've checked in with myself in the morning, so I know what energy is going on with me. I know what are the things I want to create for the day. I know the things that are going to require my time and energy because I've gotten up early. I've centered myself. And then I take stock of what is mine to do for the day. If I don't take time to do that in a busy holiday season, guaranteed I'm going to be off center. I mean, there's just no two ways about it.
And it seems to be magnified around the holidays, which is funny because, next week we're going to talk about, because next week's show is Christmas Eve, and we're going to talk about kind of the stillness that happens at that time. But man, why is it such? Why is it so frenetic right up until that moment? Is it we're just trying to do too much, or is it? Yeah, because I mean that kind of highway justice stuff that happens all the time. But
it happens all the time.
Does. Yeah. It just either seems worse or seems to bother me more around Christmas. I don't know.
Well, and that's because of the stress level. Plus, we all do this fear breathing, which is basically like sends cortisol through the body. We all are doing this shallow fear breathing, which means it's like when we go into that mode, it's like it's the same whether somebody pulls over in traffic and scares us or we see a saber-toothed tiger. We go into fear breathing.
Is that the pit of the stomach drop kind of thing you're talking about? I'm not really familiar with fear breathing.
Oh, fear is like when we go, and most of us, the way we learned to cope with life is that we walked on eggshells so we didn't make people mad around us. We never knew when the other shoe was going to drop, and we learned to breathe very shallowly, meaning from our chest only. And when we're breathing deeply, breathing down into the stomach and even down literally, it feels like we're breathing literally from the base of our spine up. That's a completely different kind of groundedness and breathing. So when we're busy and when we're anxious, it means we're doing very shallow breathing, which is known as fear breathing, and it really is a bad habit to get into, and most of us do it all the time.
Just unconsciously? Totally
unconsciously. And so it's why in the meditative practice, you'll so often hear me say, take 3 deep breaths. It's hard to stay in fear if you take 3 deep breaths because it slows everything down and it literally changes the energetic vibration of your body to do that. So if you're already anxious and you're already not breathing and somebody pulls over, it's like you don't have any emotional cushion anymore. It's like it gets,
it's just raw,
very raw. And it's like, and then later we go, my God, why did I react like that? That's not me. Well, we weren't grounded in who we really are is why it happens. So staying grounded in you means, you get up in the morning, you take your deep breaths, you spend some time centering and focusing on what you're to be about for the day. And by the way, coming up in January, I'm doing a whole series on, there's a whole morning practice I want to give you, and it's just too much to go into now, and I want to do it in the context of the series. But starting your day, and Dave, I know you and Shannon both do this too, starting your day with intention is what I'm really talking about. It's so simple. Starting your day with intention, getting clear, a few deep breaths, checking in with the universe. What's mine to do today will help you stay grounded in yourself, and then to move forward and do that. That will help any situation that you might find yourself in the holidays, whether it's a long line at the store, whether it's crazy traffic. and all of these things. So
Yeah.
staying grounded in yourself is really important.
Yeah, and you can start, you can kind of extract that intention idea. You can start your commute with intention.
Oh, yes.
One of the things that me and Shannon have been doing, she's been really into Dear Evan Hansen, the musical here lately.
Oh, right. She told me that. Yeah.
And there's a song called Dear Evan Hansen, Today's Going to Be a Good Day. Or
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the lyrics. And so that's become kind of a mantra between us. When
cool.
either of us realize, hey, things are going a little sideways, we will say, Dear Evan Hansen, and we'll hold each other's hands, look at each other in the eyes. Dear Evan Hansen, today's going to be a good day. And it's a way to kind of reset that energy in the midst of anything we're doing, whether it's a weird interaction at work, or whether it's a stressful car situation, or whether it's just, hey, my computer is being really stupid and making me frustrated and I want to lose my salvation. So there's it seems like it's kind of related to kind of what you're talking about, setting an intention, but this time just using a song lyric to kind of help trigger that along.
Yes, and what we're really talking about is bringing consciousness into the everyday. That to live a spiritual life is not about going to church. It's not even about doing a yoga practice or studying spiritual books. It's about the living application of it in real time, in real life. And we often like to say about our show, it's real time conversations, because we're often sharing, like Dave just did, the lessons we're learning right now. And that's what we want to do. We want to learn the lesson and apply it immediately to life, so that our lives can be better. I was going to say fuller. I'm not sure if that's a word. And full of more joy and more love and more spaciousness, so that when things do happen, rather than overreacting, we have objectivity, because we're staying grounded in ourselves. We have the intention to have, like Dave said, today's going to be a good day. And even just bringing that consciousness to the forefront will help guide you through your day. And I'll be honest, sometimes if I have to get somewhere and I'm in a hurry, I say, angels, please fly me there. Move all the traffic for me. And I've had wonderful experiences of that. And it keeps me grounded in the spiritual, without trying to force my way somewhere.
Right. Yeah. Shannon calls that God is in the green lights.
Yeah, God is in the green lights. That's awesome.
That's a book title that
I didn't know that.
She started writing.
That's
God
great.
is in the green lights. That's Shannon. Dibs on that for Shannon.
Yeah. Well, you know what? There's also that book too called it's about a God winks. I'm not sure if that's the name of the book, but it's like ways that you see God, in your surrounding. And and so staying grounded in yourself. And then the second aspect for me that's really strong is staying boundaried. So stay grounded in you, and then stay boundaried.
Yeah, that can be tough. That can be really tough at the holidays.
Yeah.
When family expectations start kind of getting all riled up, and you need to be here, and you've committed to this, and we're all getting together and having family Christmas party or family dinner, and
well,
your yards.
And several shows ago, Dave, you talked about how in your household, because you have you and Shannon's parents living here, that you call it your yard.
Right.
Don't worry about that, right?
This is my yard. This is mine to clean up. Whatever's happening in my yard, whether it's weeds or dog poo, this is me. This is my job to maintain my yard. Right.
And so there are physical boundaries certainly that we want to keep, but I'm speaking of the even more subtle ones, our emotional boundaries. Our emotional boundaries are very, very important, because if we are in boundary failure, any comment can send us off, to places, it's like our suddenly our minds become like a bad neighborhood. Don't go there alone and never at night. And it's like, whoa, how did we go that dark so quickly? And it was because typically because we're in boundary failure, meaning that we do not have our boundaries on board, and things people say and do, strongly impact us. Now, that's not to say that we're inhuman, but it means that we have a perspective that anything somebody says or does negative that's toward us is really about them and not about us.
Yeah.
And so to stay as boundaried as possible really is a wonderful way to protect ourselves emotionally. And I don't mean walled off. So being boundaried is not walled off, because when we put up walls, that's really blocking good energy from coming in, or bad energy. But boundaried simply means I'm holding my own personal awareness of myself, and I'm not going to let other people's opinions or about me or my behaviors decide who I am and what I say and what I do, that I am in charge of myself. I'm in charge of my body, and I'm in charge of my emotional nature wherever I might be at the time. So we want to be boundaried, again, not to keep people out, but to have less negative impact on us emotionally. Well, one of the ways to stay boundaried, and I wish I had on a coat with a zipper, because I often imagine zipping up if I know I'm going to be in a situation where, say, emotions could run high, or maybe I'm going to be in a situation where there might be what I would call toxic energy or difficult emotional energy to be around. I imagine. And actually, I imagine a wetsuit. I don't know if any of you listening have ever done diving, but I used to dive. I did some incredible dives in Honduras, and one of the ways when you zip up your suit, it's like you are totally zipped in up to the neck, and so what I imagine is zipping up that wetsuit and zipping up and protecting myself so that I know whatever's happening in the outer is about those people and not about me and my own self-worth. And staying boundaried is an effort, especially at the holidays and especially when you're under stress.
Is it just a matter of biting your tongue, or does it go deeper than? Because I know that you've been invited to some dinners with some political figures who
Yes,
may or may
been.
not have necessarily agreed with you,
and
so is it just biting through your tongue, or is it how does that manifest itself so it doesn't, when we and Shannon talk about it sticking, it doesn't stick on you?
Yes, exactly. That's a great question. Yes, I did have dinner with the governor, former governor now of Florida, and I have I had several political situations where I found myself in several difficult situations just with other human beings. And it's not about, for me, it's not about biting your tongue. It's about realizing everybody is in a certain place on the soul journey. There's a very good reason they got there. And when I make space for who they are, I find that people make space for who I am. And no amount of force or anger or reacting is going to change that. However, if I can be centered in myself, if I can be sure of who I am and stay in my boundaries, then we're very likely to have a good conversation. So I do want to say more about that. We're going to take a brief break and come right back.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partner, CCU Orlando, who has helped make this episode of the Authentic Spiritual Journey possible. Christ Church Unity is a welcoming community dedicated to transforming lives, celebrating diversity, and supporting soul growth. CCU Orlando is located at 771 Holden Avenue in Orlando, Florida, with Sunday services at 9 and 11 a.m. You can stream services live online as well as learn more at christchurchunity.net. We would also like to extend our thanks to our podcast partner, Aikens Counseling Center. Cassandra Aikens is a licensed mental health counselor dedicated to creating sacred space where clients can explore their own inner process in a safe, non-judgmental, and supportive environment. She works with individuals, couples, and groups who are seeking to live a more authentic life. Aikens Counseling Center is located in Winter Park, Florida, and can be found on the web at CassandraAikens.com. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey.
Welcome back. We're glad you're here. We were just talking about staying boundaried in the holiday season, and it's easier. I mean, it's harder than it sounds. It sounds pretty easy to stay boundaried. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, especially because if we know we're going into a situation that's difficult and we're, imagining zipping up emotionally, which again is a wonderful way to remind yourself to stay in your own feeling reality and not be so impacted by others. But the place, and that's wonderful when we can do that, but often even at home with the people we love the most, that's the place we can often forget. It's like, I shouldn't have to be boundaried at home. Everything should be, perfect and loving and all of that. But Well, remember, the people we live with are also faced with the same pressures, or sometimes different and even more pressures than we ourselves are facing. And they may say or do things that are not, from the ultimate highest place of being, which of course is totally normal and human. It happens at my house all the time where, you know what, I'm not senior minister Cynthia Alice or podcast personality. I am like very human, tired. Or I have a moment where I'm angry about something.
Yeah, you don't get an executive override here.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So the staying boundaried and staying in your own feeling reality is really important. I learned about this probably 25 years ago, and I'm still working on it today. I had a wonderful mentor and teacher, and I still to this day credit her with so much of my emotional health, because some of the very basic things that are in fact not really basic, they're actually profound, of just staying in my own feeling reality and not be totally taken off center if I hear something or someone says something. That is a really profound way to live. And the other piece I wanted to mention about staying boundaried, so yes, we zip ourselves up. The other piece that's really, really helpful, especially if we're going to go like shopping and we know it's going to be kind of a frantic environment, is just to imagine surrounding yourself with angels, with bright light as protection. And
a hedge of protection,
yes,
we would say in the evangelical growing up.
Exactly, a hedge of protection. And because the heavenly realms are really here to serve you and want to serve you. So even if you're staying in your own feeling reality, it's wonderful to invite in this protection. And again, this is about becoming more conscious as we walk through every single day. And the holiday season has the potential to be the richest in terms of what we can experience spiritually. But if we're so triggered and emotional all the time, it's going to be the worst spiritual experience of the year even.
Yeah, especially when you start interfacing with family members, over Christmas dinner, who may or may not either agree with you or share your views, and that racist uncle who just is going to say tell a racist joke or something, and at some point you have to, there is something to be said about confronting things that need to be corrected, but at some point, I mean, don't you think that what good is going to come of that? Like, you have to kind of ask yourself, what good can come of it? It's no different than arguing with strangers on Facebook. What good will come of this?
Well, virtually nothing,
right,
actually.
Exactly. And the only thing that's going to happen is everybody is going to have a miserable time of it.
Well, and, to bring in the topic of karma, and you're just creating bad karma. You're going to have to deal with this person forever until you can really respect someone where they are on the journey. And even though like our mind can't understand it, or we're confused, we're angry, we're like, what century are you living in?
Right, I know.
And we all have family members that are that way. It doesn't really ever pay to think yourself superior above other people in your family. It's like they just are where they are. And you can choose, however, to not put yourself in that situation. Yeah. And there are a couple situations in my own family that I choose not to put myself in, or my son or my partner, and I feel fine about that because my job is to be a protector and of my family unit. And if I thought someone were gonna be hurtful of that in any way, I'm not going to put myself in that situation. But if somebody's just being their own strange self around the dinner table, then, I think when we get to the point of being mature enough in who we are, then we can let everybody be who they are.
Right.
And that's part of staying boundaried. I don't have to change you. I'm working on me.
Yeah.
And very often when people drive us nuts, we say, oh my God, that person drives me nuts. They're showing you a piece of your shadow, or else it wouldn't drive you so nuts. You would be really able to just, hear it and let it roll off and go, oh, well, there goes Uncle so-and-so again. Isn't that interesting what they're doing over there? So fighting it and resisting it is not helpful. Staying boundaried in ourselves, not reacting. When we feel an internal reaction, then we deal with that in ourselves rather than making them wrong, because they're just over there being themselves, and then if an attack comes, well, then we have a choice.
Right.
How do we handle it? Do we remove ourselves from the situation? But guaranteed fighting it just doesn't win.
No.
It's not worth it.
There's no upside.
Power down is all I've got to say.
Yeah.
And again, the more conscious you are going in, the better. The more conscious going in, the better. So that intention piece that keeps coming up in this show, the intention of okay, who do we want to be in this situation? How do we want to bring ourselves in is very, very important. So staying grounded in yourself, staying boundaried, and then, next I would say is staying connected to spirit. So stay connected to spirit through the holidays. Stay connected to spirit every single day. Even if all you have is 5 minutes. That was a show I recently got on a show where I was doing a live broadcast, and it was a little bit of an interview. And one of the questions was, how much silence should I do if I'm new? And I said, 5 minutes a day. And the host said, is that all? I said, if that sounds like not enough, do 10. Do 15, but stay connected to spirit in whatever way works for you. But silence is going to be a wonderful way to keep yourself connected to spirit. I thought we'd have a moment right now.
Yeah.
Another way I stay connected to spirit is through music, through singing, through listening to positive songs that inspire me to study spiritual things. It reminds me of what the truth of life really is and what's most important.
Yeah, one of the things that I've been doing, doing music gigs and theater gigs and everything, and when you do a theater gig, you've just spent the better part of 3 or 4 hours.
Oh yeah,
making music, and it's loud, and it's just
it's intense.
Yeah, it's intense. And it used to be that I would just ride home in complete silence. But one of the things I've started doing lately is I found a playlist called Coffee Table Jazz on
cool.
On Apple Music.
Yeah.
And actually Spotify. So Coffee Table Jazz. And there's this one song that I think it's called I'll Know or something like that by Dan Hazeltine Trio. And it instantly just kind of depressurizes everything. And as I'm thinking about it right now, in real time, I'm like, it's essentially helping me kind of get into that meditative state. Is it helps kind of power down from the night, and it does kind of ground me. And it's the same song, every night it's the same song, and I know exactly how it's going to go. It's not a terribly super memorable song. It's just this really chill kind of vibe to it. And yeah, I think that's what's happening. I think it's helping me kind of recenter after a night of making a lot of music.
Yeah, I think it's really important to know what your own personal anchors are. And again, I think always meditation is good, but music can be just as powerful, if not more so. And it's wonderful to have it's almost like a keynote, an anchor that works for you. And again, we should be doing that now to really make sure that daily, if we want to listen to that, to connect us with spirit, that's a wonderful thing to do, and maybe even a great way to start your day, especially if you know a lot's going to be asked of you for that particular day. And the one I use is an MC Yogi track. It's called, I think the album is called Ritual Mystic. And I will get you the name of the song. We'll put it in the show notes. But that's an incredible newer album of MC Yogi. And it's the one of his I use every morning. And another one I use is called Shanti, which of course means peace. Or maybe it's called Peace Out. But anyway, and that's from his Elephant Power CD as well. So anyway, we'll get those links in the show notes. But both of those are key for me in keeping me connected to spirit. It's as soon as I hear them, I drop in.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was pulling up the
Oh,
track.
that's all right. As soon as I hear them, I really drop into spirit, and I can tell that the energy when the music was created was connected to spirit also.
What was the name of the first song? I got the Shanti song.
I think it's Ritual Mystic. I bet my other assistant that's in the room could find out what it is for me, and he'll let us know.
Ritual Mystical?
Is it Ritual Mystical? No, I think it's Ritual Mystic. No, that's not it.
No, that's an advertisement. I should really mute that. Sorry,
Okay,
guys.
no
Sorry,
problem.
everybody at home.
Oh, wow, that's really weird. I was just in an alternate reality, Dave.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
No, but my other assistant, my younger assistant, will find it.
All right, and I'll put the link to the Dan Hazeltine song as well.
Yeah.
So that you can see what we all think.
Yeah, and again, friends, these are samples and examples of what works for us. If you have something else, by all means, use it. Use whatever you need to be connected to spirit. Whatever you need to be connected to spirit. Again, meditation is wonderful. Deep breathing is wonderful. And then music as a keynote, as a touchstone, as an anchor for yourself, by all means, use it.
It's there is a the movie Inception, right?
Yes, I don't think I saw it, though.
The movie Inception, it's all about dream states and everything.
Oh, yes,
and
you told me about it.
And so in the movie Inception, in order for them to stay grounded in their reality, they carry something that means something to them. And in the movie, it's called a totem. And it could be anything. It could be like a little top. The main character has a top. And so when he spins the top, that helps him stay grounded. And so that kind of, that's what that feels like is a totem. But almost more like an auditory totem.
Mm-hmm. I bet if you're a kid, doing Legos makes you stay grounded.
Yeah. All right, I'm looking for that.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. And then I think lastly, the thing I want to talk about is really action. Going forth in peace and love. So if we're staying grounded in ourselves, we're staying boundaried, and we're staying connected with spirit, or staying connected to spirit, then the final thing is to move forward in the world in peace and love. And what is so important especially in this season, is that if we see ourselves getting off track, rather than continuing the behavior and getting more and more, unhinged as the day goes on, what we want to do is back up and become objective in our own process and start the process all over again. Take time, again, a minute or two to get grounded before we get out of the car. Take time to get boundary, take time to stay connected to spirit, and then before you go forth in peace and love. And there's one thing I really wanted to mention, and somehow it comes up every holiday, and somebody at church thanks me for it, that so many of us think, oh, well, if I take time to meditate, I don't have time to get all my, errands done. And several years ago, this is probably about 8 or 9 years ago, when I was really, listening to my guidance in a deeper way. And I had all the stuff I needed to do for the holidays. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to go to 3 stores to look for this thing. And it finally came to me, well, why don't I just, in my meditation time, ask Spirit which store to go to and check that out? And every time I've done that, it has proven to be right on. I get the guidance, I go to that place, and I get what I need, and I leave, instead of doing 3 trips around town and not being sure where to go and going into all this insane energy. So remember, friends, that Spirit always has your best in mind, that God's will for us is good. And so when we, touch into our soul and stay connected to Spirit, we're going to receive the guidance that's going to help us, go forth in peace and love. But the message of this season for me is God bless us, everyone. And so when we're out there going forth in peace and love, and we see the people around us being insane and maybe even having unsafe behaviors.
Yeah, maybe even if they took the very last Beanie Baby. I don't know, nobody buys Beanie Babies anymore, do they?
Right, but the very last controller that we were going to buy.
Exactly, or the very last Tickle Me Elmo, or
creepy.
Those things are creepy. Yeah, and again, stay safe.
Yeah.
It's not that important.
Right.
Please don't run people over with your cart. We've all seen those people of Walmart videos.
Praise.
But no, it doesn't have to start that way, and it certainly doesn't have to end that way.
Right. So if you are out and you see people in these behaviors, so see if you can expand your awareness of the Christ presence. See if you can expand into being a soul and an emissary of love, so that you can send them energy. And many times I've been in line, and if I'm not the crazed one, and I see somebody in a tough spot, or I see like a cashier who's frazzled because she's been working all day, I just silently send love to that person. And more than once I've seen shifts, in feelings and behaviors, because they don't know, but they feel it and sense it. And so even in the holiday season, friends, we want to be emissaries of peace and love.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done is I try to keep my feelers out in the drive-through line.
Ah, good
if
thinking.
I'm at Dunkin' or whatever, and
If you're at Dunkin'.
the Dunkin' or Starbucks. Oh my gosh, I always just kind of peek into the rear view mirror, and I just try to just sense the energy behind me.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and more often than not, I'll pay for their donut or whatever.
Yeah, that's really fun to do.
Just pay for it. You will never see that person again, probably. And don't make a big deal out of it. Just say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to cover theirs, and just tell them Merry Christmas, or tell them, pay it forward, or whatever. And not only does it feels good for yourself, but if I feel like there's weirdness, like maybe they were all up on me, or maybe they were cutting me off, or something like that. And you know what I mean? You get in the drive-through line and they're like all up on you.
Oh, yes, I do.
And
It's
so
crazy.
instead of like holding that anger, I'll say, you know what? I'm gonna buy that. I'm gonna buy that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that helps. That helps me kind of eject that weirdness.
Yeah, not take on the energy. That's
Exactly.
a wonderful way to stay boundaried, and a wonderful way to bring yourself back into alignment is when we give, we are really aligning ourselves with the Christ Spirit. So, friends, we are so glad you have joined us today. We do hope you have a safe and sane Christmas holiday,
Absolutely.
or whatever holiday you might be celebrating this season. Know that we love you, we bless you, and we are so grateful that you take the time to spend with us, that the show is touching your lives, and we especially appreciate when you tell your friends, because we really see the message expanding. Our number one goal is to expand this message around our world. Because we believe, as people know the truth of their souls, who they are, that the divine is in them, that literally the world will change for the better. So blessings, friends. We love you. We bless you. And we hold you in the light for all good things.
Yep. And we will see you next week on
Yep.
Christmas Eve. We're
Yep.
going to be talking about our own spiritual Christmas and holiday tradition.
That's it. God bless us, everyone.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey, presented by CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. This channel is made possible through the continued support of our angel patrons, Dove Borland, Angela Martinez, Peter Gibson, Paul Caswell, and Two Spirits Health Services, along with our partner patrons, CCU Orlando and Aikens Counseling Center. If you would like to help be a part of bringing shows like this and other programs to the channel, please consider becoming a patron. For information, episode show notes, and details about our other shows on the channel, head over to experienceofthesoul.com. And if you enjoyed this program, you can help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, or the podcast platform of your choice. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2018, Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Shannon Croft and used with permission. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.